Yes. Good evening, guys. In the last class, we understood what is interface and what is abstract class. What is the interface? What is interface? Interface contains abstract methods. Interface contains abstract methods. Here, when we go for abstract classes, come on, guys. Abstract classes can contain both abstract methods and concrete methods, right? Interface contains abstract methods. Abstract classes can contain both abstract methods and concrete methods. Interface cannot have constructor. Interface cannot have constructor. Can we write a constructor for abstract class? Yes. Abstract class can have constructor. Abstract class can have constructor. All right. Now, can we create object for interface? No, we cannot create a object for interface. Can I create an object for abstract class? No, we cannot create an object for abstract class also. Okay, interface contains abstract methods. Abstract classes can contain both abstract methods and concrete methods. Interface cannot have a constructor. Abstract class also abstract class can have constructor. We cannot create an object for interface. Similarly, we cannot create an object for abstract class. Okay, one interface one interface cannot implement another interface. One interface cannot implement another interface. One interface can extend. One interface can extend another interface. One interface cannot implement another interface. One interface can extend another interface. Okay, if interface contains only one method, then it is called as what interface, guys? Functional interface. If interface does not have any method, then it is called as marker interface. It is called as marker interface. When we implement a interface, we need to implement all the methods of the interface. When we implement any interface, then we have to implement all the abstract methods of that interface. If interface is having 10 methods, we need to implement all the 10 methods. Okay. When we extend abstract class, can I extend abstract class? Yes. When we extend abstract class, what will happen? When we extend abstract class, we need to override all abstract methods. We need to override all abstract methods. When we create a object for abstract class subclass, then abstract class constructor also will be executed. Abstract class constructor will be executed when we create object for subclass. When we create object for the subclass, then superclass constructor will be executed. Interface contains only one method, then it is called as functional interface. If interface does not have any method, if it doesn't have any method, then it is called as a marker interface. When we don't know any implementation, for any method, then we should go for interface concept. When we don't know implementation for methods, then we will go for interfaces. Interface contains only abstract methods. When we know implementation for few methods, we don't know implementation for few other methods, then we will go for abstract class. When we know partial implementation, when we know partial implementation, then we will go for abstract classes. When we don't know implementation for the methods, then we will go for interfaces. When we know partial implementation for methods, when we know partial implementation for methods, then we will go for abstract classes. So these are the points that we discussed in the last session. Interface contains abstract methods. Abstract classes can contain both abstract methods and concrete method. Okay, to create a interface, to create a interface, we will use interface keyword. To create interface, we will use interface keyword. To create abstract classes, we will use abstract keyword. Okay, guys. To create an interface, we will use interface keyword. To create abstract classes, we will use abstract keyword. Interface contains abstract methods. Abstract classes can contain both abstract methods and concrete methods. Interface cannot have constructor. Abstract class can have constructor. We cannot create object for interface. We cannot create object for abstract class. One interface cannot implement another interface. One interface can extend another interface. When we implement any interface, then we have to implement all the abstract methods of that interface. When we extend abstract class, we need to override all abstract methods. Abstract class constructor will be executed when we create an object for subclass. If an interface contains only one method, then it is called functional interface. If an interface does not have any method, then it is called as marker interface. When we don't know implementation for methods, then we will go for interfaces. When we know partial implementation for methods, then we will go for abstract classes. Are you clear, guys? Good. Now, today we are going to understand another concept called blocks in Java. There is a concept called blocks in Java. We can write two types of blocks. Block nothing but some piece of code. Block nothing but some piece of code. Block means some part. Some part or some piece of information. Some piece of information or some piece of code. Now you see this room is there. This is one block. That is one block. So it is divided into multiple blocks. Block means some part or some piece of information or some piece of code. In Java program, we can write two types of blocks. We can write not to blog. Blog is different, block is different. It is a block. So block means some piece of code. In Java program, we can write two types of blocks. One is called as instance block. Second one is static block. One is instance block. Another one is static block. Now, instance block. What is instance block? When the object is created, if you want to execute some piece of code, then you can go for instance block. If you want to execute some piece of code when object is created, then we will go for instance block. So I'm not going to write a method, because when you write the logic in the method, you need to call the method, then only it will execute. You can write the logic inside a method. Method will execute automatically, or method should be called. Method should be called. When you write the logic in the method, you need to call that method, then only that method will execute. But I don't want to call that method. Whenever object is created, then I want to execute some logic by default. If an object is created, some logic should execute. I no need to call any method. If you have a requirement to execute some logic when the object is created, then you can go for instance block concept. Instance block. If you want to execute some piece of code when object is created, then we will go for instance block syntax. That's it. Inside the program, anywhere you can write like this. Inside this, you can write some statements. When you create the object, this block will execute. Whatever the code you write in the block, instance block, that code will be executed. Similarly, we have a concept called static block. There is a concept called static block. If you want to execute some piece of code when class is loaded, when you want to execute some code when class is loaded, then we will go for static block. Then we can go for static block, we can go for instance block. So if you want to execute some piece of code when my class is loaded, I want to execute some code. That's it. I no need to call the methods. I can write the logic in the method, but the methods will not execute automatically. Methods will execute when you call them, but without calling the methods only, when the class is loaded, I want to execute some code. Then we can go for static block. When you want to execute some code, when the object is created, then you can go for instance block. All right. So go to a program. Yeah. I'm taking one class with a name called demo. 1 minute. Yeah. I'm taking one program class with a name called demo. Taking a class with a name called demo. Now, inside this class, we are having main method. So I'm writing system.out.println main method. I am from main method. Okay. This statement will be printed. Run this program. When I run this program, are we able to get the message? Yes. When I run this program, it is saying that I am from main method. When I run this program, it is saying that I am from main method. Now, here I am going to write a static block. That's it. Static keyword I am writing, block starting point, block ending point. I can write a static method also. What is the problem if I write a static method? Will it execute automatically? No. Whenever you call that method, then only it will execute. But what is the advantage with the block? Whenever the class is loaded, it is going to execute. System.out.println, I am from static block. Now I have static method and I have static block. Which one will execute first? I told you initially, whenever we run the Java program, execution will begin from main method. At that time we are kids. Now we got the maturity. When Java program execution will start from the main method if a static block is not available. Understand my point? So whenever we have static block in the program, program execution will begin from static block. Are you able to understand? Yes. Who will get the first priority? Static block will get the first priority. Now tell me, what is the difference between static method and static block? Static methods we have to call by using class name. Block will be executed automatically when the class is loaded. When the class is loaded, static block will be executed automatically. Now, let me write one instance block. How to write a instance block? Directly open a brace and close a brace. This is one block. This is one block. What is the difference between this block and this block? If the block is having a static keyword, then that is called static block. If the block does not have a keyword, that is called instance block. System.out.println I am from instance block. I am from instance block. Now see, if I run this program, what is the order of execution? Static block will execute, static method will execute, and am I creating the object? No. When the instance block will execute, whenever object is created, then only instance block will execute. See here, instance block is executing or instance block not executing. Instance block is not getting executed. Instance block is not getting executed. When the instance block will execute, whenever we create the object. Demo d is equal to new demo. I'm creating the object. Run this program. Now, when I create the object, is this block is executing? Yes. What is the difference between instance method and instance block? Instance methods we need to call by using object. Instance block will execute automatically when the object is created. Okay. Now I'm going to write a constructor. Object creation means constructor calling now. Object creation means constructor calling. I will say I am from constructor. I am from constructor. Look at this. What is this, guys? This is called instance block. What is this? Constructor. What is this? Static block. What is this? Static method. Okay. Now I'm going to run this program. When we create the object, constructor is executing first or block is executing first? Block is executing first. Okay. So instance block will dominate the constructor. Static block will dominate the main method. Blocks are having high priority than constructor and main method. Okay. In your project, if you have any such kind of requirement to execute any code, when the object is created, you want to execute the code. When the object is created, before constructor execution, I want to execute some logic. Then we will go for instance block. In your program, before main method execution, if you want to execute some logic, then you can go for static block concept. Able to follow me? So what is instance block and what is the static block? What is instance block and what is the static block? If you want to execute some piece of code when the object is created, then we can go for instance block. Instance block will be executed before constructor execution. Understand my point? Yes. Instance block will be executed. Instance block will be executed before constructor execution. When the constructor will be executed? When the object is created. When the instance block is executing, when the object is created. So when you create the object, constructor is executing, block is executing, but which is executing first? Block is executing first. So whenever you create the object, first instance block will be executed, then constructor will be executed. Whenever you run the program, class will be loaded to the JVM, right? Class will be loaded to the JVM. If you want to execute some piece of code, when class is loaded, then we can go for static block. Static block will execute. Static block will execute before main method execution. Static block will execute before main method execution. Are you guys clear with my point? Yes. Now here comes one interview question. What is static control flow in the Java? What is instance control flow in the Java? That is one interview question. Okay. What is static control flow and instance control flow in Java program? That means I have instance methods, I have constructor, I have instance block, I have static method, I have static variable, I have static block. So when instance concepts will be executed, when static concepts will be executed, that is called static control flow and instance control flow. Able to follow my question? What is the question? What is static control flow and what is instance control flow? Right. So before going to do that, before going to understand that, can you tell me what is a block? Some piece of code. Block represents some piece of code. How many types of blocks we can write in Java? There are two types of blocks. One is instance block. Second one is static block. What is the meaning of instance block? If you want to execute some piece of code, when object is created, then we can go for instance block. Instance block will be executed before constructor execution. Before constructor execution. Right. This is the syntax. Just open curly brace and close the curly brace. And here statements you can write. Whatever the code you want to write, you can write it. Static block. If you want to execute some piece of code, when the class is loaded into JVM, then we can go for static block. Static block will execute before main method execution. So to write the static block syntax, static keyword will be available, open curly brace, close curly brace. Inside that you can write the statement. No, sir, you cannot pass any parameters for that. Any logic that you want to execute, which doesn't take any parameters, which doesn't give any output. Just you want to execute some logic, whatever you want, but in the real time, we don't use it. Language provided that concept. I never used that instance block in my project. So there is no such kind of requirement. No, that I will come to that point. I will come to that point. So when we want to call instance method, when we want to call the instance method in the static block, I will come to that point. First, are you able to understand what is instance block and what is the static block? Yes, when the instance block will be executed, when the object is created, then instance block will be executed. When the static block will be executed, when the class is loaded into the JVM, then this static block will be executed. Okay, next question is, what is static control flow and instance control flow in the Java program? Guys, I will be back in 2 minutes. One trainer came, I want to meet him. I will come back in 2 minutes. Okay, online people. So meanwhile, you think about what is the static control flow and instance control flow. I will be back in 2 minutes. Right, guys. Able to understand question? Yeah. What is the question? What is static control flow and instance control flow in Java program? So the flow is when we run Java program, when we run Java program, JVM will check for static members. So what is the meaning of static members? It will check for static variables. It will check for static methods. It will check for static variables, static methods, and it will check for static blocks. When we run the Java program, JVM will check for below static members and will allocate memory, and JVM will allocate memory for them. So whenever we run Java program, JVM will check for below static members and JVM will allocate memory for them. First it will allocate the memory for static variables, then it will allocate the memory for static methods, then it will allocate the memory for static block. Okay, it will maintain the same order. When we run Java program, it will load static variables first, allocate the memory, then load the static methods in the class, allocate the memory, then load static block in the class, allocate the memory. After memory allocation completed, memory allocation will happen from top to bottom. Once memory allocation completed for static members, then it will start execution from bottom to top. What is the meaning of bottom to top? First it will execute block, then will execute method, then it will execute variable. It will start execution in below order. First it will execute what? First it will execute static block, then it will execute static method, then it will execute static variable. This is called as static control flow. When you can write static variable, static method, and static block. Whenever you run the Java program, JVM will check static member and JVM will allocate memory for them in below order. First memory will be allocated for static variables, then memory will be allocated for static methods, then memory will be allocated for static block. Once memory allocation completed for static members, then it will start execution in the below order. That is static block, second one is static method, third one is static variable. Now guys, whenever static method is executing or static block is executing, is there any concept of instance variables? No. When the static member is executing, instance variables will not be available in the JVM. That is the reason instance variables cannot be accessed in the static block or in the static method directly. Are you able to follow my point? See here, I'm going for my Java program. Here, I'm taking integer I is equal to 10. Integer I is equal to 10. It is what kind of variable? Instance variable. Can I access instance variable in the static block? Can I access instance variable in the static block? It is failing. Why? Cannot make a static reference to the non-static field. Non-static variables cannot be accessed in the static area. Why we cannot access non-static members in the static area? Static means class level, instance means object level. Static means class level, instance means object level. Now, when my static block is executing, is there any concept of instance? Is there any concept of instance? No, there is no concept of instance. Okay, so if you want to access instance variable in the static block, you need to create the object. Through object only you can access. Without object you cannot access. Sir, inside this static block, can I create a demo d is equal to new demo? Yes. Object I am creating. Through object can I access the variable d dot I? That is possible. Okay. So if you want to access any instance method or instance variable, you can access through object only, but not directly. But not directly. Okay. Can you tell me what is a static control flow? First memory will be allocated for static variable, then for static method, then for static block. Once memory allocation completed for static members, execution will start from block, method, and variable. Okay, note. If we want to access, any instance method or instance variable in static area, then we should create object. We should create object, and using that object we can access. We cannot access directly. We can't access directly. Why we can't access instance variable in the static block? Instance variable will be created in the JVM when the object is created, but the static block is executing at the class level only. When the static block is executing, variable is not available in the JVM, so it cannot access. If anybody want to access any instance method or instance variable in static area, then we should create object, and using that object only we can access. We cannot access directly. This concept is called as static control flow. This concept is called as static control flow. Main method will execute first, or static block will execute first? Static block. After the static block, main method will execute. Now I have a question. Can I access static variable inside a static method? Yes or no? Yes, we can, because first memory allocating for variable. When the method is executing, variable already created na. When the static method is executing, static variable already created. So that's why static variable can be accessed in the static method directly. But can I access instance variable in the static method? Yes, through object. Directly we cannot access. You got the reason why it cannot be accessed directly? Yes. Why it cannot be accessed directly? Static is related to the class, instance is related to the object. Object creation is mandatory. Okay. Then tell me, what is instance control flow? Can you guys tell me what is instance control flow? Instance will start when the object is created. Instance means object. Instance means object. Instance control flow will start when the object is created. Instance control flow will begin when object is created. Instance means object. Instance control flow will begin when object is created. When the object is created, when object is created, when object is created, memory will be allocated for instance variables, instance methods, and instance blocks. You can write multiple instance blocks in a class. You can write multiple static blocks also inside a class. Whenever the object is created, instance control flow will start. When the class is loaded, static control flow will start. When class is loaded into JVM, then static control flow will start. When class is loaded into JVM, then static control flow will start. When we run the Java program, JVM will check for static member and JVM will allocate memory for them in the below order. Static variables, static methods, and static blocks. Once the memory allocation completed, it will start execution from block, method, variable. If we want to access any instance method or instance variable in static area, then we should create object. Using that object only we can access. We cannot access directly without object. What is instance control flow? Instance means object. Static means class. Instance means object. Instance control flow will begin when object is created for a class. When you create object for a class, that class instance control flow will start. When object is created, then memory will be allocated for instance variables, instance methods, and instance blocks. Once the memory allocation completed, execution will begin from instance block, then instance constructor. First instance block, then constructor, then instance method. Once memory allocation completed, then execution will happen in below order. What is the order? First it will execute which one? Constructor or block? First it is going to execute instance block. Then it is going to execute constructor. Then instance method. If we call instance method. If we don't call the method will execute or method will not execute. If you don't call the method, then that method is not going to execute. You have to call the method, then only method will execute. Otherwise, method will not execute. Can I access static variable in the instance method? Yes, possible. Why? It is already created in the JVM. That's why it is possible. Okay, note. Static members can be accessed directly in instance areas, because for static members, memory already allocated at the time of class loading. By the time instance is executing, for static members memory already allocated. That is the reason static members can be accessed in the instance directly. But if you want to access instance members in the static area, object is created. Static means class, instance means object. Good. Now you got the clarity. What is the static control flow and instance control flow? Very important interview question. What is the static control flow? What is instance control flow? Able to follow me? Good. Read this. Blocks. There are two types of blocks available. some part or some piece of information is called as a block. Two types of blocks available in Java. One is instance block, another one is static block. If you want to execute some piece of code when object is created, then we can go for instance block. This is the syntax. Can I write more than one instance block? Yes, it will execute in the order, top to bottom. If you want to execute some piece of code when class is loaded into JVM, then we can go for static block. Static block will execute before main method execution. Syntax. Static is there. What is this? What is this? Body. This is static block body. This is instance block body. Static block. If you want to execute some piece of code when class is loaded into JVM, then we can go for static block. Static block will execute before main method execution. Syntax. Syntax. What is the static control flow and instance control flow? Instance static control flow means first block will execute, then method will execute, then variable will be executed. Static variables can be accessed. Static variables can be accessed directly in static blocks and static methods. Got it? Now see here I'm taking static int I. Static int I. Can I access that in the main method? Yes, because variable is static, method is also static. Static, they are relatives. Yes or no? But instance and static, dushman. Dushman. Static, instance. Static means class level. Instance means object level. So that point you have to remember. Now, when you have instance block and constructor, which one is executing first? First instance block is executing, then constructor is executing. Instance memory will be allocated for instance variables and instance methods and instance blocks. Instance blocks. Once memory allocation completed, then execution will happen in below order. Instance block, constructor, instance methods. Perfect. If we call, instance methods will not be executed automatically, we have to call. Static methods also will not execute directly, we need to call. We need to call. If we call, only main method will be executed automatically. Only main method will execute. Only main method will execute automatically by JVM, because that is entry point for the program execution. Now tell me, when I have a Java program, execution will begin from where? Execution will begin from where? Main method or static block? Static block. If static block not available, then it will execute from main method. Correct. Now I have a question. Can I run this program without main method? Can I run this program without main method? I have just a static block. Can I run this program? No. What it is saying that main method not found in the class. Please define the main method. Up to Java 1.6, we can execute a program without main method by using static block. But from 1.7, they made main method is mandatory to run the Java program. Even though it is executing from the static block, main method is mandatory to run the Java program. If a static block available, first static block will execute, then main method is going to execute. Got it? Yes. So main method is optional or main method is mandatory. Main method is mandatory to run the Java program. Main method is mandatory to run our Java program. First static block, then main method, then instance block, then constructor is executed. Okay. Fine. So with this, we are able to understand what is a block, what is instance block, what is a static block, what is instance control flow, and what is static control flow also. Perfect. Good. Any questions? Any question? Now, can you understand what is the main method? Initially, so many people asked me, sir, could you please explain what is this main method? Now, do I need to explain anything? Public. What is the public? Access modifier. Anybody can access. It can be accessed by anybody. Static. What is the meaning of static? That method should be executed when the class is loaded into the JVM. What is void? Void is a return type. That method will not return anything. What is the main? Name of the method. What is parameter of the method? String array. The main method parameter is string array. How to pass input for the main method? Command line arguments. We can pass input for the main method by using command line arguments. That's it. So now you understood what is main method. Yes, main method is a predefined method in the Java, that is entry point for the JVM to execute our Java program. Main method we are not calling. JVM is calling the main method by using our class name. That's why the main method will have static keyword. Main method is a static method. Main method is a static method. Good. Now, main method will not return anything. You can write the logic in the main method, but main method will not return anything to you. You need to use the main method to supply command line arguments and to call your user defined methods. Whatever the static methods you are writing, whatever the instance methods you are writing, to call those methods, you can go for main method. To call those methods, you can go for main method. Good. Now, you can, no? Because by the time instance method is executing, static variable memory already allocated in the JVM. So that static variable you can access in the instance method directly. Static means a class level. When the class is loaded, memory allocated. Instance means you created the object. By the time you create the object, static already there in the JVM, so you can access that. No, it will not take any parameter. It will not return anything. Just if you want to execute any logic before your object creation or before your class loading, then you can go for that. No, no. I never used this, but static block in the advanced Java, I will tell you where we will use this static block, but instance block, I never used in my career. Yeah, we don't do that. Static block in the real project, I have not implemented, but in the JDBC, they will use the static blocks. I will show you that. Okay, good. Next one, and the last one in the OOPS concepts, that is java.lang.object class. Okay, so this is our last topic in the OOPS. Java.lang.object class. Okay, we already know that. We already know that what is object. Can you tell me what is the object? Object is a predefined class available in java.lang package. Object is a predefined class available in java.lang package. Object is a predefined class available in java.lang package. This object class will act as a super class for all the classes in the Java, either directly or indirectly. Object class will act as super class for all the classes in Java, either directly or indirectly. What is direct superclass or indirect superclass? If our class does not have, any superclass, then object class will become direct super. Object class will become direct superclass. If our class having any superclass, then object class will become indirect superclass. Object class will become indirect superclass. Will become indirect superclass. Read the point. Object is a predefined class available in java.lang package. Object class will act as a superclass for all the classes in Java, either directly or indirectly. If our class does not have any superclass, then object class will become direct superclass. If our class having any superclass, then object class will become indirect superclass. Object class is having 11 methods. Object class is having 11 methods. Object class having 11 methods. Every Java object can call those methods. Why every Java object can call those methods? Because it is by default super. It is by default super. So child class objects can access parent class methods also. Object class having 11 methods. Those methods are available. Those methods are by default available for every Java object. For every Java object. If I have demo d is equal to new demo, can I call object class methods? D dot equals equals method available in which class? Object class. Can I call d dot toString? No. In the object class, toString is there. Yes. Can I call d dot hash code? Yes. Where this method is available? In object class. So how many methods available in the object class? There are total 11 methods available in the object class. Those 11 methods are by default available for every object. Come on guys, read the point. Java.lang.object class. That is by default superclass for all the classes in the Java. Read these points. Object is a predefined class available in java.lang package. Object class will act as a superclass for all the classes in Java, either directly or indirectly. If our class does not have any superclass, then object class will become direct superclass. If our class having any superclass, then object class will become indirect superclass. Object class having 11 methods. Those 11 methods are by default available for every Java object. Can we see what are those 11 methods? Yes. Where I can find those 11 methods? Come on. JSE API. We need to go for JSE API. Yeah, package. Which package? Java.lang package. Yes, right. Class name. Can you see this? What is this? Object. Class name is object. Okay, good. Next one. Class is the object. Class object is the root of the class hierarchy. Every class has object as a super class. All objects, including arrays, implement the methods of this class. It is available from 1.0. Okay. Yes. Now, can you read this method? Yes, read this method. What is this? Clone. What is the purpose of the clone? Creates and returns a copy of the object. If you want to create a duplicate object, I have an object. For that object, I want to create a duplicate object for experiment. For experiment, I want to create one duplicate object. Then we can go for cloning. If you want to clone your object, you need to implement clonable interface. No. So I have one object, guys. I have one object. In my object, some data is available. I don't want to modify my object data directly. Safe side, I will create a copy. Safe side, I will create a copy. On that copy, I will do my experiment. That is called cloning. The process of creating duplicate object is called as cloning. If you want to clone any object, that class should implement clonable. What is clonable? What kind of interface? Marker interface. Clonable is what? Marker interface. From now onwards, every topic we are going to discuss depends on the OOPS. Now we completed the OOPS, right? So whatever the topics that we are going to talk in the coming classes for next 20 days, every topic is related to OOPS only. If you go for exception handling, if you go for collections, if you go for multi-threading, if you go for IO streams, 4 important topics are available. Collections, exception handling, multi-threading, files. So if these 4 topics are completed, then we are good to start advanced Java. Core Java is never-ending process. Java 8 भी आता है. Core Java is a never-ending process. Is there any limit for Core Java? Why? You see, how many packages are available? So, how much time is required to learn all these packages? Lifetime. So, nobody knows everything in the core Java. Java is very big, but we are learning some important concepts which are required for our project development. Are we learning complete core Java? No, it is not possible. Why not possible? If I teach you like this for next 1 year also, core Java will not be completed. So in core Java, what are the important topics for the project development? Those topics we are learning. And core Java is a lifetime learning process. So every day, whenever you join in the company, new Java version will come, new features will come. You have to upgrade, you have to learn. It is a never-ending process. Some important topics in the core Java we are discussing. Able to follow me? Correct. Yes. Correct. For this we need to implement. Some rules are there. So what is the first method, guys? Clone. What is the meaning of clone? Create the copy of the object. There is a rule, guys. There is a rule. If you want to implement cloning, cloning, which class object you want to clone, that class should implement a clonable interface. That is the rule given by Java. Clonable is a marker interface. Sir, why to implement a marker interface? Special treatment. Cloning is a special treatment which will be given by the JVM if your class is implementing clonable interface. Practically, we will see that. We are just trying to understand what are the methods available, and what is the purpose of those methods. What is the first method? Clone. What is the purpose of clone? It is used to create a duplicate object. It is used to create a duplicate object. What is this? Equals. What is the purpose of equals? Indicates whether some object is equal to this object or not. If you want to compare two objects, then you will go for equals. Object class equals method will compare the content or will compare the address. Where we discussed this concept. Overloading and overriding. String class equals method will compare content. Object class equals method will compare address. Next one, there is a method called finalize. What is the finalize method? In the Java, there is a concept called garbage collection. What is the purpose of garbage collection? It is used to remove unused object. Garbage collector is used to remove unused object. When garbage collector is removing unused object, it will call finalize method to check that object is using by any other object or not. Is there any reference available for the object or not? If no reference is available, kill that object. Before our object is removing by the garbage collector will call a method called finalize method. Okay. Next one, what is this method? Get class. If you want to load the class, then if you go, you can go for get class. Get class returns runtime class of this object. So if you want to get the runtime class of a particular object, you can go for get class method. What is this method? Hash code. We will come to that. Just understand the name of the method, purpose of the method. We will work with that. Okay. So get class. What is the meaning of get class? Returns runtime class of that object. So I have a object. That object class I want to get. That is called runtime class of the object. Based on the class, you will create the object. Based on the object, I want to get the class. It is a batch operation. Okay. Class, from class to object. From object to class, reverse. For that, we will go for get class method. What is this method? Hash code. What is the purpose of a hash code? What is the purpose of a hash code? Hash code method returns hash code value for the object. Returns a hash code value for the object. What is the hash code? What is the hash code? A unique number which is assigned for every Java object. Whenever you create an object, JVM will assign one unique hash code for every object. Then there are notify all. These methods we will understand in the thread. So when we go for multi-threading, then we will understand these methods. Notify all, wait. Array, why these many times wait is available? Overriding or overloading? Overloading. In same class, a method with the same name, different parameters, so it is called as overloaded. This wait method also we will understand in the multi-threading. This method is related to thread. This 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 is related to thread. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 methods related to multi-threading. Forget about the 5 methods. How many methods left? How many methods left now? 6 methods left. We need to discuss those 6 methods now. What is this? ToString. So ToString returns a string representation of the object. Okay, let me note down the methods. What is the first method? Clone method. Okay, let me take this protected method, guys. Clone is a protected method. What is the return type of the clone method? Object. Protected is return type. Protected is what? Modifier. What is the method name? clone. What is the return type? Object. What is the purpose of this method? To create a duplicate object for the class. When I have one object, I want to create the copy of the object, then we will go for clone. Next one is equals. What is the purpose of equals? If you want to compare one object with the another object, then we will go for equals, but it will check address of the object. What is the return type? Boolean. What is the meaning of Boolean? If two variables are pointing to the same object, it will return true, otherwise it will return false value. Next one, protected finalize method. What is the meaning of a protected finalize? Who will call this method? Are we going to call this method, or garbage collector will call this method? Garbage collector will call the method before removing object from the JVM. Before removing object from the JVM, garbage collector is going to call our finalize method. Finalize method. Next one, get class. What is the return type of get class? Class object. Class object. It will give runtime instance of the object. Runtime instance of the object it is going to provide class. Okay. Now, what is next method? Hash code. What is the return type of the hash code? Hash code return type is integer. What is the hash code? When the object is created, JVM will assign a unique number for every object. That unique number is called as hash code. Next we have notify all. Forget about that. We have toString. What is the return type of toString? What is the return type of toString? It is used to represent our object in the string format. It is used to represent our object in the string format. For that we will go for toString. Then we have notify method. We have notify all method, and we have wait method. Wait, overloaded method. Wait, overloaded methods available for wait. Three methods available for the wait. Wait without parameter, wait with parameter, wait with a single parameter, wait with two parameters. Single wait without parameter, it is void. Void wait with parameter, and here void with two parameters. So these methods we are going to use in multi-threading. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 methods. Last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Last 5 methods will be used with multi-threading. Last 5 methods will be used in what area? In multi-threading concept. When we are implementing multi-threading in the project, then we will go for last 5 methods. The remaining 6 methods, common, right? The remaining 6 methods are common. What are those? What are those? Clone method, equals method, finalize method, get class method, hash code method, and toString method. Good? Yes. Yeah. It is a generic. That is a concept. Generics is there in the core Java. Yep. Yeah, in the Java only there is a concept. How we have, oops, similarly there is a concept called generics concept available. Yeah. We'll discuss that. That is also part of the syllabus. Okay, now what we need to understand, guys? What methods we need to understand now? These are 6 methods that we need to understand. We will discuss about these 6 methods in the tomorrow session. Okay, all of you attending web development classes, are you okay with that? Yeah, you will get the video access also. Today video uploaded in the YouTube. So in another 1 or 2 days, we will upload the videos in the platform so that you can access that. I will ask Naveen sir to give the notes also. So either in the GitHub or in on the portal, I will ask him to upload the notes by tomorrow. Okay? Yes, in the portal we can upload the notes. Fine. From Wednesday, Oracle will be starting at 9 p.m. From coming Monday, Oracle will start. So by that time, by tomorrow, our OOPS will be completed. Tomorrow, object class will be completed. Then bye-bye to OOPS. So then daily you will have 3 classes. Remaining concepts of our core Java, plus web development plus Oracle. हाँ. कौन सा क्वेश्चन एक्सप्लेनेशन? असाइनमेंट वाला. हाँ ठीक है, मैं एक्सप्लेन करता हूँ. No problem. Yes, whatever the assignments I have given, right? I will explain that in the class so that you can see how I'm writing the logic and what is your logic. You can verify that. Okay? Yes. Any other questions? No. Actually, that UI classes, maybe some outside people, maybe they are joining, but our morning 11 o'clock batch people, they are not joining. I told them not to join because they can't understand. Still, they are in the basic Java installation only. Okay, right. So some people maybe from other institute, maybe they are joining for the web development. Some new people may be joining for the web development, but most of the people are our full stack batch students only. Okay, good. Thank you. We'll continue tomorrow. We'll work on object class methods. Fine. Yeah. To be frank, today morning also, I have written some notes for that. Mostly I will complete it. I will complete it by this week. Yeah.